don't know if you knew, but I have another little one. I have 5 now.
Okay, no, I did not. All right,
Yes,
all right.
he's gonna turn 1 in May. Both my boys are May babies. So May 1st, my eldest turns 13, and my baby will turn 1, and then the girls are in the middle.
Yeah, man, that's what's up, though. You know, you're gonna need that caffeine too. Between the work and the kiddies, you need that caffeine, man.
You need that, and that's also I'm still teaching too, so that's why I've got both jobs. You know.
How often are you teaching?
So that just stepped back up where I've been doing like 2 classes a trimester. So I've got 2 maybe 3 coming up in the fall.
Okay.
So that's been, that's been real good. I think I had 2 before that, 1 before that one,
So you're an adjunct professor. So how does that work? Is that like contractual, or how does that work?
Essentially, you're like a teaching mercenary, right? They hire you for the class, and then that's it.
Okay.
If they like you, they have you teach it again or teach something else, But it's nice too because, they don't take out all of the benefits and stuff that they do when you're a full-time employee.
Right.
So
now, how do they, when you said they have you back, how do they determine if are they polling, or how are they doing that?
So, yeah, there's for every class, there's feedback from the students. I'm sure that somebody's looking at that. So if there's a lot of real bad reviews, and then they take other things into account, like this is his or her first time teaching, because there's always room for improvement, and for first time adjuncts, there's really not a lot of guidance. I don't know if that's everywhere. It's just kind of, so that feedback really is, as long as it's constructive. And that's what I ask my students. I said, listen, if you don't like something in class, tell me. But tell me how you would like to see it different, or how it didn't help you as a student. Don't just be like, this guy sucked, right? That's not good feedback.
Right.
Tell me this guy sucked because he did this or didn't do that,
right.
or, whatever the case is. I was like, that's going to help me be a better professor and then help everybody else out. So I like the constructive criticism. That's the only way I think people can grow, unless you're perfect, right? I know I'm not.
Right. Now, how was that first time, when you're a professor, right? Yeah. After you walking in that first time, going in that class, and just because I know your background a little bit, how was that adjustment to going from, all the hard work, all the studying, all the hours, all the preparation, to now, this is real now. I'm in control. I'm essentially to help to, create minds, help to shape the minds that's going out in the world.
I think having started at the same time I was also going through my second degree, my second master's, put me in a unique perspective because I know what I did and did not like as a student. And I can then be the kind of professor to an extent that I wish I had. And I had some great professors. Like, I don't want to, say, oh my God, it sucked. Didn't suck at all. I had some real great people. That's the other benefit, is I can take the things I liked that they taught me, right? And utilize that. And then the things that I also didn't like, or the styles that I don't think worked, I could stay away from.
Right.
And there's a lot of refinement too. So like that first class is, it'll test you, because there's a lot that goes into the adjuncting to prep, and then, you teach, how you do the testing, size of class, material, all of that. And it's just, every time, if you get the ability to teach it again, they bring you back. That's when you can really, okay, this didn't work, let's do this different, or I didn't like this book, I don't like how these slides were written, and then eventually you make it yours, right? So whereas a lot of times you can choose a book, and if there are teaching materials that go with that book, the slides, testing, all that, and you could use it as is, that's great. But a lot of times you're, taking what you like from this, what you like from that, and then customizing that class to make sure that you accomplish the goals of the class, but at the same time you're giving value, right? Nobody wants to take a class, and some classes are just they're tough. As a professor, so like I'll give you an example. My networking class, right? Networking, it's a critical component for cybersecurity. Critical, right? Most attacks happen over the network. So even if you're not in network security, you have to understand some form of networking to be able to protect. But that class is just it's not my best class. Like it's dry. It's not very interactive. It's just a lot of giving information. So I don't enjoy teaching it as much as I do, say, Python coding. That's an interactive class, right? So I think I have a really good format where, I teach it, so they're seeing it, the concepts behind it. I'm opening up the code, right? Going line by line. So the concepts we just learned, they're seeing it in action, right? So they're hearing it, they're seeing it, and then they do it. So for everyone, then I give them challenges and I have them code it. And I think that trifecta of learning really helps for the reinforcement. And because with Python coding, every lesson builds on the previous one, it's really important you don't fall behind, because then you're really behind. And I if I need to spend a little extra time with students, I like the using like, I use WebEx, but just being able to say, let's just schedule something, hop on, go over whatever, and then, they're back on track. I think that's been my most effective class.
Right. So how much like latitude as far as with the curriculum? Is it like really strict when you're doing it, when you're teaching? How much latitude, other than bringing your own personality to it?
I'd say there's a lot. I mean, there's a class description. So you want to make sure that, if it's being advertised as you're going to learn these topics, that you cover those topics. But the way you do it, I don't think there's, no real specific way. If you're fortunate enough to be taking over for another teacher and you reach out to them, they'll show you their materials and you can say, oh, I like that. And then you could utilize that. I tend to make some changes. Like, for instance, this class one of the classes I'm teaching is actually an advanced Python class now, which I was like, oh, advanced, right? Next step, a little nervous. I was able to get all the teaching materials, and I was like, oh, wow, some of it there's overlap. And I'm like, so I might even be over teaching my Python students, because I was like, they got to, here, right, but they start here. So I was like, okay, so there's the first four classes right there, right? Or really the first six, right? Because the first two I level set, right? I'm not going to make any assumptions about where you've been before, but I need to know that we're all here when we move forward. So I do a quick review of everything to that point where I think they should be. And if everybody's good, and then we start moving forward. So that's where we are. So today they got their first quiz, or tonight, and we're moving forward.
Okay. Now I know how thorough you can be, because I remember it was and you weren't asked to do it, but you took it upon yourself, as far as there was some issues with like drug dealing going on at a particular university, and it was like the whole FBI, where you had the person who was the main guy, you had who he talked. I mean, it was elaborate, and this is before were you even thinking of like cybersecurity and that type of stuff back then? So you were already like essentially coding and piecing things together, as an investigative tool. And obviously we know it wasn't appreciated, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
All right. So what is cybersecurity? Is there a definition for
that? There's actually probably many definitions depending on your source on exactly, like what is cybersecurity. And I think to really understand cybersecurity, you kind of have to understand what is a cyber crime, right? So cybercrime is basically criminal activity that will either target computers, using a computer or a computer network or some sort of network device. Usually it could be by an individual or a group or a nation state, and we can get into the different what they call threat actors. And what cybersecurity is the defense of those networks and those computers from cyber criminals, I guess is probably the most plain way to put it. Most cybercrime is and occurs over the network, right? And that understanding what the network is well, that's the focus of an entire class that I teach. But you have the internet, right? Capital I, big internet that's out there, right? And all the internet really is a network of networks, right? Which are just interconnected devices that people utilize one way or the other. So when we look at a corporate network, right, or even a university network, right, those are a bunch of interconnected networks that share. They share IP space, they share informations, and they're interconnected in such a way that they're almost, you could say, they're segregated, and there is a connection to the big I internet, right? But my area of defense is that particular network, right? And there's multiple facets to defend that particular network, and I'm not responsible for all of them. There's several teams, in fact, that handle different aspects of defending that network. And most networks will have a wide variety of people, sometimes very few if it's a smaller network or a smaller company, to, you can imagine how many people they have defending, let's say federal networks for that,
Right. So like for somebody like me who, I just want to open up my laptop. I want to, I want to go on some websites. I want to, I want to go on Amazon. I want to, is eBay still a thing?
It is. Okay. Yes.
I haven't, I say I want to go on eBay. I want to, I want to order some stuff. Because you're going to put your information. Like, what's like the basic thing what's the biggest threat to me, and what's the basic thing that I can do, for the regular guy?
So for Joe or Jane average, right, that just want to live their life and not lose their identity, not lose their money, there's a number of things. And I think that the first and most important thing that people should realize is that you are a target, and that they have to erase that mindset of, oh, what do they? I only do this on my computer. What do they want my computer for? Or oh, my credit sucks. They don't want to have my identity. And that's an awful mindset where you kind of ignore the security aspect because you don't think that anybody's going to want you or want anything that you have to offer, where your very computer can be a tool for bad guys. So simply taking and compromising your computer itself. So just to put it into perspective, right? So there's what they call denial of service, and the whole purpose of that is to prevent somebody from accessing a service. So you like to watch movies, right? You want to open your laptop, you want to sign into Netflix, you want to be able to watch your movie, right? The purpose of denial of service is so that you, the user, doesn't get to enjoy that experience. And they do that by overloading the resources, right? So, Netflix and similar streaming services have a number of resources that allow them to provide this video service to a certain number of people, right? Whether it's 1 million, hundreds of thousands, right? Broken down by region, however their setup is. But there is a finite number of resources. So what bad guys will do is they want to prevent people from doing that. So by taking over computers, they can utilize those, and they're called zombies, right? Which is kind of funny, right? These zombie computers that are under the command of this group or this person will then request resources they don't need from Amazon or from any streaming service to overload those resources so that you, the user, don't get to enjoy it. So let me put it into an easier way, and this is the way that I like to break it down for my students. If I'm in a classroom full classroom. Let's say I have 30 students. One student calls my name because they actually have a question and need my attention. I will hear them call. I will respond to them, right? They need a service, right? The service is they're looking for answers, right? Then let's say 2 students call me, right? I can say, okay, you called me first. I'm going to help you. Then I'm going to help you, right? But now let's say what happens with 5, right? 10, 15, right? Quickly, my ability to know who's calling me at what time is going to be overwhelmed. But now let's say of the 30 people, right, all calling for my attention, only 5 of them actually need an answer. The rest of them are calling just to be a distraction. Well, while I'm trying to call on people that don't actually need me, the ones that actually need me are not getting the attention that they need. That's a denial of service. They're being denied by these bogus calls.
Right.
So getting back to the other part of your question, what can you do to protect yourself? So there's a couple of things. One, you want to have at the very basic an antivirus on your computer, and it doesn't matter your operating system, whether it's Linux, Mac, Windows. Windows does have a built-in Windows Defender that you can utilize if you don't want to pay or get another one. Making sure that the antivirus that you're choosing is a legitimate antivirus, doing some research on it especially before you purchase it. There's a lot of bogus ones out there that are in fact not actually antivirus, but programs created by bad guys to help them take control of your computer. So knowing what you're installing is another big one. And then there's certain hardening things you can do. I mean, you don't want a laptop that you can just open up. You want to have a strong password to get into it. And I know that's a point of contention for people, right? They want to keep it simple. But there's a reason that we use complexity. There's a reason that we change it every 60 to 90 days. Don't leave your password out. Don't give it to your friend. And really controlling the kind of software you put into your computer is important too. And especially updating your computer, right? Which kind of alludes to what I do in vulnerability management. I know it's annoying that, once a month, especially if you have a Windows machine, there's all these updates. And it's like, oh man, another set of Windows updates, but it's important that you keep your computer up to date because those are fixing holes in your machine. Think of it this way. If you're going to go sailing out on the ocean, you want to sail in a leaky boat? Probably not, right?
Right.
Well, you don't want to use a computer that has holes in it either. So being careful, like just general using the internet advice, being careful what you click on and where you go. Those are definitely important. And another big one is your email. We get tons of junk mail, right? Just probably, I want to say 50% of the emails I get or more is garbage. But a lot of them have links. And there's a really big part of cybercrime that's called social engineering. And these are individuals that are skilled in manipulating you into giving personal information in a couple of different ways. But email still remains the biggest one, whether it's within corporations, within universities, small businesses, personalized. There used to be a commercial way back that was a joke about, oh, I won the Australian lottery. And it's like, okay, did you ever play the Australian lottery?
Right.
No. You can't win something you've never played, right? Something that's too good to be true is in fact false. European prince wants to give me half his money and all he needs is a down payment for or something,
Yeah.
You're thinking
I guess people want to believe it's kind of like, what, hey, what? And they don't see the danger in it, but like, why not? If I can get a couple of extra dollars, but once that information is gone, what people will do with your information is what the issue is.
Absolutely. And honestly, what we call it PII, personal identifiable information, is actually more valuable than your financial information. There's which, that hospitals are such a huge target for cybercrime because there's so much equipment there, and most of the medical equipment were not initially designed with security in mind. So that's definitely a big area. Protecting those patient records. It's a huge thing, but protecting just the equipment there. Can you imagine if you have some sort of machine that's hooked up to somebody and that it needs to perform a particular action if their vitals go a certain way, right? Like, I'm going to auto shock this person if they go into an arrest, or I have some sort of automated insulin thing, right? Now, what if I manipulate that in a way that forces the insulin to go so many times that it puts you into a coma and you die? Like, that's the danger of the world that we live in.
Right.
And this new, well, it's not that new, but the Internet of Things, right? Everything seems to be connected to the internet lately. There was one, I think it was from 2017, but I actually just saw the article again recently. It was a casino who lost a great sum of money, and they hacked their network through a smart fish tank. This was an internet-facing fish tank that the reason it was connected to the internet is so that they could automate checking the pH balance and feeding and things like that. But everything you connect to your network is a potential entry point. Printers are another really big one. People are like, oh, I'm going to keep my servers up to date. I'm going to keep my endpoints up to date. I'm going to keep my networking devices up to date. And they forget about their printers, and then somebody hacks them through the printer. And you're like, oh.
See, I never thought about that. And everything is moving to that direction, too. Everything is becoming, we becoming more and more like the Jetsons, where you're not going to have to leave the house for anything. And as long as there's a network and there's somebody, and they always say like the criminals is always like a couple of steps ahead of, the people chasing them. So, like I said, for me, I open up the computer and I just get to going. You know what I'm saying? So, and I agree with you on those updates. Every time I see it, it's like, do I want to click on it now? And it's always like, remind me tomorrow. They give you that option, and I've been telling this thing to remind me tomorrow for like a month. So I will be, when we're done today, I will be just letting it, update and letting it shut down. Because what I'm doing is so important that I can't, got to do it tomorrow. You can't, I got to look at some YouTube videos today. So,
yeah,
so yeah, man, it's a lot to think about for, when as far as like, because we got the smart TVs, is smart, refrigerator. You just talked about a casino getting hacked from a fish tank. Who would even think of that? Mm-hmm. That would be the last place that people would think. When you're building a casino, what do we need to protect? You got the money, you got the doors to get to the money, you got access, we got to have cards, we got the cameras on the tables, we watching for card counters, we watching for people working together. What about the fish tank?
Right, exactly. And that's why the bad guys are so clever, right? Any connection is a potential entryway. And some of these IoT, Internet of Things devices, again, not built with security in mind. So they're easily manipulated. So there's a lot that goes into the actual defense of a network like that. And things that are potentially high risk should be what they call network segregation, where you separate areas of the network. So you would want to put something like that on an area that is cut off essentially from other critical parts of your network, so that if part of the network is breached, where they can get to is at least more difficult, right? So with cybersecurity, we have a practice called defense in depth, which is multiple overlapping forms of protection, so that in the event that one of our defenses are breached, hopefully something else prevents or slows the bad guy's ability to cause problems. There's so many different security products out there that could be utilized, but they generally fall into a couple of different categories. just to make, to kind of round it out. So if you kind of think of like medieval castle, right? You've got your moat around it. You've got your drawbridge. You probably got some archers or some sort of catapults up there, right? You've got the high walls. You might put in stone floors so people can't dig under, right? You have all these different ways of protecting that which is most important. And a network's no different. I mean, you have firewalls, right, which is a network device that will go on the edge of your network. The end, kind of think of it like almost like the front door or the bouncer at the gate, checking who's coming in and out to make sure that the right people are getting in and out. And then you might have several firewalls at key locations. So I talked about network segmentation. You might have firewalls at each of those different segments, further controlling who gets into those segments. You would have what they call access control lists, right? That's your guest list to get into the club. You're not on the list, you're not getting in.
Right.
That's another tool. They have something called intrusion prevention systems and intrusion detection systems, right? Those work in conjunction with a lot of the firewalls, where the detection will alert a network administrator or cybersecurity team of a potential issue, and then they can investigate it, or a prevention will take preventative action on the spot. And usually what you want to do is you want to normalize your traffic. As you can imagine, on a huge network, there's a lot going on, and you want to avoid what they call false positives, right? So, if your workers are trying to get into the network, you don't want to keep denying them access, right? Because, maybe they're at a different IP address that you don't recognize or something like that, right? So you need to normalize your traffic before you want to go ahead and put it into prevention mode, right? Then you have a team like mine dedicated to vulnerability management that is making sure, you could have 50, 100,000 different devices on a network, even more than that. And they all need to be kept up to date, right? So you got somebody that has to manage all of that has to coordinate that with your infrastructure teams or whoever's actually doing those updates. You've got incident responders that investigate if something does go bad, right? They're trying to figure out what happened, and work the incident, whatever it is, taking the appropriate actions as needed. There's just a lot, VPN, think COVID, a lot of remote workers now, a lot of places have gone as fully remote as they can, right? That's completely altered how we're going to operate even in the future post-COVID.
Right.
You can take what was formerly an enormous campus, right? Whether it's a corporate campus or even a university, and you could downsize and have a lot more remote workers and save space, but you're not paying the same cost for the real estate for those. Right. But at the same time, it introduces a new threat. So, there's a lot of tools to prevent what they call from insider threat, which are people within the company that either accidentally or on purpose will take information and try to bring it outside of the company to sell it or whatever they're looking to do. So there's a lot of defense that's invested into preventing such things, right? That's controlled in a campus setting, right? If you print something out, that type of thing, like that's all monitored. But when you're in the privacy of your own home, you VPN in, which essentially creates an encrypted tunnel to the network. So it's almost like extends your home laptop. Well, usually it's a work issued one, so that it's like being on the corporate campus, right? So they can see things that you do, but it adds a new layer. Like, what if somebody sets up a video camera, right? So they're not doing anything that would set off anything, any of the alerts, right? But I'm just recording my screen and I do have access to sensitive materials, right? Now I've managed to essentially circumvent so many of the protections because there's nobody physically there. Like if I went to the office and I set up a video camera on my computer, people would be like, what are you doing?
Right.
But in your own home, nobody sees that. unless you happen to leave it there during a Zoom meeting, they might be like, that's a little weird. But other than that, so there's a whole new dynamic to cybersecurity during the pandemic.
What about like somebody like gamers and stuff like that, because they spend a lot of time, on the internet and with using, camera and connected out, not just in the house, but across the world. Like the Xbox Live where you got your account information. I know that there was an issue. This is probably not necessarily cybersecurity, but there's an issue with people, sending the police to certain people's homes and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, swatting.
Yeah. So I mean, in general, like, what is the threat level for those? Because they're going through an operating system. So, PlayStation and Xbox, as far as their cybersecurity, what kind of stuff are they doing? Like,
so there's a couple of different, I guess, areas of layers of protection. So you can certainly bet that PlayStation, Xbox, and those types of companies have cybersecurity teams dedicated to keeping that home or that corporate network safe from cyber threat. I'm sure they're doing what they can to protect those that are, online, live, using their services. Of course, they're still subject to people trying to do denial of service, which I believe a couple of years ago did happen to Xbox, where the gamers couldn't collaborate because the system was down due to denial of service. There are ways where you can actually trace a person's IP address. IP address is so there's a public-facing IP address, and then there's a number of what they call private IP addresses that just label the devices within a home or a corporate network. So by being able to trace that public IP address, there's a geographic location, and this is how they do the swatting, right? Where they call in a false police report to that geographic location, forcing the police to react and disrupt this gamer. And then while they're, being questioned or arrested or whatever action the SWAT team or police are taking, they're losing their game, right? The other people are taking advantage of that, or maybe they already lost and it's their way of getting revenge. As far as what you can do about that, that's difficult. A lot of people will use a VPN to try to hide or mask their public IP address, because then it will go to the VPN service, right? So that way, they won't be able to trace them to their exact home location.
It's almost like a PO box or something like that.
Right. Exactly. You're creating that you're connecting to that service, and then from there, you've got that private tunnel that kind of protects it. People were also, when they had concerns that the cable companies were going to start throttling their bandwidth when they would watch Netflix and things like that, started wanting to use VPN services so they couldn't see the kind of traffic that they were doing and
right.
things like that. But there's a lot of other dangers, whether it's to gamers or anybody that likes to live stream. There's been a lot of cases where people will recognize things that they see in the camera, whether it's a location,
right.
Or just learning a certain layout of a house. And, people that are either excessive fans or maybe they don't like them will try to find them. So then that's like, that's taking it to a whole nother level. That's not me breaking into your computer necessarily. That's
right.
me coming to your house.
Correct.
It's like, that's a whole new level. But the other big thing is just having a webcam is dangerous. It's actually very easy to manipulate and be able to turn that on, whether it's the audio, so just listen in on somebody's house, or turn on the video. There's been a lot of cases where people will break into computers of young ladies, and in a small environment like a dorm room where it's a single room. You're changing, you're doing everything there, and then record and watch. And I know I always, when I'm not using my camera, I have it covered.
Right.
That's something I would highly recommend. You could definitely minimize that type of thing from happening by, keeping your stuff updated, but also looking for different behaviors. So, if you drive your car a lot and it starts making a noise, you're going to notice that something's off, right? Or if it starts pulling to the left, you're like, oh, maybe my alignment's off. Well, you're the main consumer of your computer. When you notice something's off, like that same thing, like should click that maybe there's something that's not right with my computer.
Right.
If it's running a lot slower than usual, if you're seeing a lot of little desktop icons you didn't see before, little subtle things, programs that you don't remember installing, there's a chance that you have some sort of infection on your computer. And I like using a product called Malwarebytes as kind of that's my doctor visit.
Okay.
It does offer antivirus. So if you want a paid antivirus, certainly that's a good one to do. But if you don't, you get like a 14-day trial, but then it goes to a free version. So it won't actively block and protect your computer. But when you sign on each day or every once a week, just run it. Make sure your computer's cleaned out.
Right.
Cyber hygiene type stuff.
Yeah. Okay. What about what are you finding threats to like businesses? What are people looking to do security wise?
So it depends on who the threat actor is, right? So there's different. I mentioned before there's categories of people. So you have nation state, so entire countries, either directly or indirectly having cyber teams dedicated to hacking. Those are probably your highest value and most dangerous threats to businesses. So, my company makes jet engines for commercial and for military. So other countries would love to get the schematics and anything else that would give them an edge in either being able to build a similar product or finding ways to get around, the superiority of the things that we make.
Right.
But their sophistication level, their funding is top notch. So these we call APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats. And they usually have an APT number associated with it, APT 25 and so forth, that are associated with specific groups. And they have like an MO, right? They have a way that they normally operate. So that's kind of, when you see something happen, you can attribute it to a particular group, sometimes based on how it was carried out.
Right.
But also nation states are generally very patient. They play a very long game. And I believe, the stats change year to year, but an intruder spends, I think, an average of almost a year within a system before they're located or before they do whatever they're going to do to get them noticed. I mean, that's a long time to spend skulking around in a network. And, it's a very deliberate process. They do all their homework. They do their reconnaissance. They plan their attack. They may try a couple different ways, what works, what doesn't. They gain access to some small system nobody really knows about. They look to elevate their privileges. They create backdoors so that they can get in and out without notice, right? And then they try to move what they call laterally, so from one system to the next within the network. And depending on their goals, sometimes goals are sabotage. Some of them are financially motivated. Some of them are espionage. It all depends, right? Another group are your criminal elements. Those are usually financially motivated, right? They're just looking to make money. You've got what they call hacktivists, right? People that are hacking for a purpose. Anonymous is a very famous hacktivist group.
Okay.
You've got, they call them script kiddies, but they're usually younger kids, 13 to 17, that traditionally have a lot of extra time on their hands, that they can go on YouTube, they can watch these videos on using very readily available tools, right, that you can download for free, and then they just mess around, right? Sometimes it's for the thrill of it. Oh, let me see if I can get into the system. Let me see if I can change this website. I'm going to make fun of this guy's name. Little stuff like that. So those are your main groups, right? So depending on the group, that varies what their motivations are.
Yeah. So what are the, like, if you do know, what kind of like threats are, as far as government wise, what are like things that are really, like, what do you feel like is the biggest threat as far as government wise in cybersecurity?
Critical infrastructure. Nation states are, in addition to everything else that they're doing, are looking to gain access to the critical infrastructure in the event of any kind of conflict. Can you imagine if they could just hit a button and shut down power across America?
Right.
Shut down water. Or there's a big push into space for weapons that disable satellites. And can you imagine if you could take control of a GPS satellite, and anybody, whether civilian or military, is reliant upon that, and you can manipulate where they're going so that you push them right into your ambush, or even just being able to track them. So it's like, oh, they're going this way, I'm gonna
Right.
I'm gonna bring my fleet around this way, or something along those lines. It's just it
sounds like what is that movie? It's one of the Die Hard movies where they were controlling the traffic lights, and they were I forgot what the name of the, I don't know if did you see that one, when
the fourth, I think it's the fourth one. Yeah,
where they when the guy was like, you brought him into my, I forgot what he called it, and he's like, are you a fan of Star Wars? No, are you a fan? No, he said, you're a fan of the Fett? He's like, nah, I like Star Wars. And he's like, man, get this guy out of here.
yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds like that, and like Mission Impossible type of stuff, that almost like they're getting the technical advice from you guys on what potentially could happen. And, a lot of times we see some of this stuff, and then years before in movies and stuff, and you don't think it could happen. And then eventually, it gets to that. So you're talking about shutting down, power, or turning off, water or something like that. It sounds like we're heading in that direction.
Oh, absolutely. Cyberspace is a war-fighting domain, no doubt. Because the reliance on this interconnectivity of so many of computer and computer controlled and automation, that's a major advantage in any conflict. As a matter of fact, so that I've been getting into audiobooks lately. Just time wise, it makes it easier for me rather than reading sometimes. And there's this book that it's called 2034, and it's written by a retired admiral, and I believe it's a retired Marine sergeant major. And it's fictional, but it's based on concerns and possibilities. And but basically happens, I don't want to ruin the book for anybody that might be interested in seeing it, but the premise is that the U.S. fleet is basically shut down by China during a conflict. Like, they had infiltrated into all of our infrastructure in such a way that when it came to a conflict, they basically could flip a switch, and then all of the naval ships just shut down, and then they could just obliterate them because there was no defense. They were able to take control of a fighter plane in the air and remote pilot it to a location where the pilot inside could do nothing.
Right.
Right. And of course, it goes on to, anybody that's a fan of something like Battlestar Galactica might see a similar situation from, early in that series where the same thing, the Cylons, where they were able to, using a computer program, basically shut them down so they couldn't really defend themselves.
Right.
And it was only the low tech that saved Galactica from being obliterated, and they had to remove that advanced software in order to be able to fight back. But there's all these countries have such a reliance, these big powerful companies on the internet. I know Russia had done a test to cut themselves off from the internet, which I thought was really interesting, because if you're going to do something and you don't want to be retaliated against, well, there you go, right?
Yeah, you do it and then shut yourself off, and then right. Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely get into some next level stuff. I see it's 2034 says it's a novel of the next world war. Is that it?
Yep.
Novel next. Okay, yeah. I like the audio books too as well, because I'm in a patrol car all night, so you just put that on and listen to that. All right. So this is a little side note, because I think I want to continue these conversations with you when you have time, different things that pop up, and get your opinion on them. But what are some, like, as far as you dealing with more software, as far as the cybersecurity you're dealing with is more software, correct?
Not necessarily. So it's so vast. Me personally, I'm looking at, patching software holes, right? That's vulnerability management, is managing those software vulnerabilities that exist on infrastructure throughout the company. But cybersecurity as a whole, there's a lot more areas that we cover. As a matter of fact, there's concerns. So, somebody that can steal money, say from a bank through the internet, right? That's pretty impressive. But it takes somebody with pretty big cojones to walk in and take the money out.
Right.
And while most cybercrime occurs over the internet, there are people that position themselves inside. Now, this is not just like I'm just going to rush in with a gun and do something. This is, I'm going to get hired there. I'm going to work there. I'm going to get positioned in a place, right? Or I'm going to get to somebody already on the inside, right? I'm going to have an inside man. And I know this is probably coming from some of those, you're thinking some of those really cool crime movies, right? But this happens, right? There's people that get great sums of money, and it could be something simple, right? All I need you to do is install this program. That's it. And I'll give you $1 million, right? Little do they know, or maybe they do know and don't care, that program that they're putting in, right, is going to bypass so many of the defenses to give them an edge in, right? Other times it might be, hey, I need you to access this, and I need you to take it out, right? So, the human element is always the weakest element in any defense network, right? Whether it's the people that get compromised or those that fall prey to social media, social engineering, those types of things are, and the only way you could really fix that is, having a good insider threat program and having great cyber education to all of your employees. There's a video I should send you that I think you'd like about social engineering. It's only about 2.5 minutes long, but I like showing it to my students because it shows them just how quickly information can be had. So this woman is what they call She's a social engineering penetration tester, also known as an ethical hacker, which is another career path within cyber. And basically, you do the same hacking that a bad guy does. The difference is you have permission and you have limitations, right? So you obviously don't want to break anything, but the idea is you find our weaknesses before they do. So her specialty is social engineering. So she's being interviewed by this guy, and she says with just a few pieces of information, she can get quite a bit. So he says, okay, let's do my phone company. She says, okay. So she gets, I think it's his girlfriend's name, just some basic information that just a little bit of reconnaissance somebody could find out about you. She turns on her laptop and plays an audio on repeat of a baby crying, right? Calls up the phone company and, basically is able to manipulate this person into feeling bad, right? She says that they're newlyweds, that her husband's at work, they just moved, she's got the baby crying, and he asked her to make these changes to their billing, and they're not supposed to, right? This woman is not on the access list for accessing his information, but who doesn't feel bad for a mother that's stuck at home, trying to get things done with a crying baby? So long and short of it is, she not only gets herself added to his account, she adds a PIN that locks him out of his own account and adds a secondary person. She's like, oh, can I also add our daughter? And adds a second person to his account.
Wow.
The whole thing's like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, no, you got to send me that. I'll definitely share that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And this happens all the time. Now, there are some heroes out there who actively engage people that call. You get those calls, those bogus calls that try to say you owe money or something along. This is tax time, so there's a lot of those. This is the IRS. You owe us $10,000. If you don't pay us immediately a sum of $500, we're going to come arrest you. Right. Like, okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Right? No, nobody's coming to get you. Like, it's BS.
Right.
Even if you owe money, that's not how they do things. Right. But there's people that will engage. There's another, if I can find it. There's another guy, I think he keeps them on the phone for 45 minutes. And their goal is to keep these social engineers on the phone as long as they can, because while they're wasting their time talking to him, they're not taking money from other innocent people.
Right. Okay. So yeah, no. I never, you don't look at it like that. And I think because the world we live in, and we are, we're very social people, and the things that we see are basically, our world. That's what the stuff that we see is what we, assume is the world. And there's a lot of people behind the scenes that just for us to be able to, go to the bank and make a clean transaction, so much, defense and so many people are behind just that one just for you to be able to do that one transaction. We forget about it because, the comfort, at least the ones of us that live in comfort, I get up, I get in my car, I take my drive, I go to the bank, and take some money out or whatever. Or like I said, I get on Amazon. I'm not even thinking about how much effort goes into protecting that simple little click, because I want to get Lightning McQueen car, delivered to me, for my little one. You know what I'm saying? And we don't even think about it because we don't see it, the amount of work that you guys are doing. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm going to wrap this one up, but I'm definitely looking forward to doing more of this, because I think I like information. I think is really, really key. And I don't think, like I said, I think you guys behind the scenes, nobody's really paying attention to it, Meanwhile, you trying to get all this caffeine in your system to keep you up, to keep you going, to protect people that don't even know about it. Unsung hero.
Oh, well, I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to having more of these awesome conversations. This is a passion of mine, and if we could raise the cyber awareness as far as it'll go, I think it'll really help avoid people making simple mistakes to put them on the victim list. You can't stop cybercrime, but you can minimize it by being aware of what's going on. I think that's the best I can put it on.
All right, cool. Now, did you see the Snyder Cut, the Justice League Snyder Cut?
I did not. Not yet.
All right, never mind.